Guys, there's a lot that happened on this week's episode of Lovecraft Country. I mean, you got cows giving birth to these alien creatures that's coming from the ground that we seen on the first episode, the Shoggoths. You got these crazy white people playing these tricks on Atticus, Letty, and George. And you have Atticus showing us his anaconda. Literally.
I like it spooky.
Hey, what's up, hardheads? Welcome back to my channel, and today I'm reviewing episode 2 of Lovecraft Country, titled Whitey'S on the Moon. I'm just going to come to a conclusion that, Misha Green and Jordan Peele and J.J. Abrams and everybody that's involved is going to give us a movie worth of material in a 1-hour episode of Lovecraft Country. It was just too many things going on, too much happening, and it's not in a bad way, because I do believe that, in these coming episodes, we're going to get answers. That's what I love about these type of shows, especially since we're not able to binge them, we're able to watch it weekly, that it keeps us guessing, it keeps us wondering what's going to happen, and it drags us in to watching the next episode, because it's not giving us answers. So we go in watching these episodes thinking like, oh, it's going to be fun, and it is fun, but we do not get all the answers that we need. And sometimes we do get the answers, and then sometimes, more questions come along after we get answers from previous things that happened. So we got some answers from the first episode into the second one, but then it just raised a whole bunch of new questions here. Let's go over this episode real quick and just talk about Whitey'S on the Moon, Lovecraft Country. So this episode starts off with the Jefferson theme. So when I was watching this, I was already cracking the hell up, because you got George and Letty having a good time in their rooms, dancing around, going through books, Letty trying on all these clothes, and just having a good old time. And as you guys remember, at the end of the first episode, these characters come into this mansion, a white guy answers the door, and he tells Atticus, welcome home. So now it continues on to this one, and we just see our characters just having a great time, except for Atticus. He's still wondering what the hell happened from the night before. You are introduced by that white character from the end of the first episode. His name is William. And William is giving George, Letty, and Atticus a tour around the mansion, talking about how the building burned down in 1833. And, they kind of have to, rebuild it. And I'm not going to give all of it away right now, because just know that according to William, Atticus is a part of something way bigger. And during their tour, Atticus see the car that helped them when they were getting chased by those racist white people. And he asked, well, do that car belong to, whoever? And he was just like, yeah, Christina Braithwaite, she's the owner of many cars, yada, yada, yada. So clearly these people are rich, because, if she got many cars, then, she got money. So Letty, George, and Atticus is all having lunch, and they can't seem to remember anything that happened the night before with the Shoggoths and, the sheriff or whatever. Well, I think they actually do remember the sheriff part, but they don't remember anything with the animals. Atticus is the only one that remembers. George and Letty lost their memory, so they have no idea what the hell's going on. So we kind of go on to this episode, them trying to discover things. So they come across this lady with the dogs or whatever. Atticus is kind of believing to be crazy, because George and Letty's like, what the hell he's talking about? Maybe a shell shot from the, when him being in the army. And he's just like, no, it's not that. I don't know what the hell you're talking about. I know what I saw. You guys seen it too. A lot happened last night. So we're introduced to this lady with these dogs, because they hear the whistling noise that they heard that called off the Shoggoths in the first episode. So Atticus instantly recognized that noise, so he goes to find, and he sees the lady with the 2 dogs, and she's kind of taken back a little bit. She's like, who the hell are you? George is like, we're guests of Samuel Braithwaite's, we've been called here, whatever. And she was like, pretty much starting her racist shit, talking about, oh, well, you don't look like a guest of Samuel Braithwaite. And then she goes on talking about black bears, and then quickly that conversation from black bears intruding and all that fun stuff turns into her just saying the blacks think they're smart, this and that, but they end up being killed. And she was just kind of saying some fucked up things. So they end up walking back into the woods, going back into the mansion. The sun is obviously down, so they're trying to hurry it back, because they don't want to face any crazy people with their racism and prejudice, and then also those monsters on top of that. Interesting dialogue with George was happening here. He's just kind of had this epiphany, and he goes on telling Atticus and Letty that Atticus' mother, when back in the day, he remembered her telling him a story about one of her ancestors, Hannah, that was enslaved by a slave owner. She ends up escaping a burning house, running through these woods pregnant. So he kind of, so that was kind of random to me at first. 'Cause I'm just like, where did that even come from? Like, what are you talking about, George? Interesting. I want to know about it, but where did that come from? And during all of this, they still try and get through the woods, and they are interrupted by two giant Shoggoths. Those creatures are disturbing. They're terrifying. I hate them. They're just annoying. They're getting in the way of everything. Then we are saved by Christina Braithwaite, who's on top of her white horse, you know, calling off the monsters by blowing that whistle or whatever. But when soon as she blew that whistle, Letty and George forgot the memory again. They did not know what happened. They was wondering why they were covered in dirt. Atticus is the only one that remembered. So we get that crazy white lady with those two dogs that we seen earlier. She happens to be there. Christina kind of tells her to take them back to the mansion or whatever, so they can get ready for dinner and get answers and all that fun stuff. So yeah, that lady get on my nerves, but she gets what's coming to her later on in the episode. So then we are back in this mansion, and we are introduced to Samuel Braithwaite, who is played by Tony Goldwyn. Fitz from freaking Scandal, and a dude from Ghost. He played on one of those Friday the 13th movies, I believe A New Beginning. I might be wrong. I think Jason Lives, whatever. I see him on here. I'm just like, what is Fitz doing on here? But he's playing Samuel Braithwaite, and as soon as I seen him, you know, getting his liver or whatever the hell pulled the hell out and sewed back up, and then as soon as he made that comment, he's darker than what I expected. That pissed me off. I didn't like that. Samuel's just jealous of Tick's melanin because, you know, Tick's skin is popping, and Samuel, you know, I think he's jealous for a lot of reasons, and this is kind of what happens with, you know, white supremacy, where they think they are above you and have these things above, you know, control over you or whatever. But there's also some jealousy at play in there, and that kind of intimidates them, but that's another story as well. And y'all, we also get hints that Montrose might not be Tick's father. Yes, George kind of says a quote saying something about, well, if Tick is related, then Montrose was just like bait or something like that. So as soon as he said that, I'm just like, all right, well, if he's saying that Atticus is related, why would Montrose be bait? Wouldn't Montrose be, like, I don't know. It was just kind of confusing, but I instantly was just like, you know what, after that, then we get into Samuel saying some racist shit, talking about Adam and Eve and going back and talking about immortality and yada yada yada. And Christina is just there looking at her father crazy, but she's kind of going along with him because, I mean, that's her father, but she had to. But you can just tell that she just don't want to be there. But then Samuel's just like, well, I don't want to see you until the dinner later on, so, you know, you're dismissed. So Christina ends up taking Atticus out, and they having a conversation, and they seem a little cool at first. Atticus got questions, you know, and Christina's like, look, it is what it is. My father and his friends are powerful. You don't want to get mixed up in all of that, whatever. But you can also still tell that she's there for him. I don't know. I just feel like she's on their side because she hates her family or something. I don't know. I'm just getting those vibes. Might be wrong. We find out in future episodes possibly, but that's what I get. So Tick still want to know where his father at, and Christina's just like, nah, I'm not telling you. He said, well, you can at least take the spell off my uncle and friend. Like, I can appreciate that. She ends up doing that because you hear George and Letty screaming. I guess they got their memory back because they're going absolutely crazy. But then Tick is locked in his room. There's some barrier on his doorway where he's trying to get out. He can't. And Christina's just like, alright, I gotta go. See you. Bye. And then Christina is called, you know, into their barn or whatever because a cow is giving birth to this creature. She helps give birth to this creature. It ends up being a baby Shoggoth or whatever the hell it's named. And I was so confused because I'm like, why a cow is giving birth to this creature? And you thought this show was crazy enough from, you know, what's happening now. And in the first episode, it gets even crazier because now our characters are locked in their rooms. They got their memory back. But then they start seeing things. Like you got Letty, you know, seeing Atticus in her room. And at first you believe it because you're just like, all right, it's Atticus. You know, they're having a conversation. You know, she's talking about life and whatever. But then I'm thinking, like, how the hell you got out his room? Like, wasn't he just, like, locked up in there with the barrier or whatever? And then we get George, and he ends up seeing Dora, and that was just like a nice little situation going on there, because he knew that she wasn't real, but he was just cherishing that moment that he had with Dora. And then we have Atticus, that's fighting somebody, I guess, from his army days, and she just comes out the damn closet, just going off and trying to shank him and, fight him, and there's just this big brawl going on. I was looking harder at her, because I knew I recognized her from the first episode, and I'm just like, that's Jamie from the real world. And guys, I'm not too sure how old you all are, but there was an Asian girl on one of the real world seasons, and she became a big, well, not a big, huge star, but she became recognizable in a lot of movies. Like, she was in Sorority Row, she was in that horrible Dragon Ball Evolution movie that we do not speak of anymore. And she plays in a lot of cool movies or whatever, and I instantly recognized her because she just has a recognizable face. And I knew that was her from the first episode, but I wasn't sure. But then this episode solidified. So now we know we have something with Atticus and his character, because he sees her in that dream as like this purple alien coming from the spaceship, and then he sees her again but in a uniform, and they're fighting each other. So while that's happening with Atticus, you got George and Dora still having a conversation, and we also get some more hints about Montrose and their childhood and possibly not being Montroses. And then we also get Letty and Atticus, or the fake version of Atticus. They're making out. They pretty much about to have sex, and then Letty's just like, no, I don't want to do this. And Atticus opened up his pants, and an anaconda, literally an anaconda, comes jumping out and trying to attack Letty. So there's a lot of symbolism there, okay? So you have a serpent coming out of Atticus's pants. So it could be a couple things. It could just be, that, they're trying to say that, his thing is a sin and this should not be touched or whatever, but like that, because, they're not married and you shouldn't have sex before marriage or whatever, so keep away from it. That's how I took it. And then also, Atticus, private parts might literally be an anaconda. There's a song called Anaconda. So, I mean, it could be a representation of that. And it could just be the whole thing with the Adam and Eve thing, because there's a lot of that going on in this episode here. So, I mean, there's a lot that's behind just that moment there, okay? But eventually these guys snap out of it, and it's all a hallucination. Christina Braithwaite is making them see these things. But what also bothered me is that you see all these white men at this gathering preparing for this ceremony or whatever the hell it's supposed to be. They're sitting here watching Letty, Atticus, and George like it's a show, and that bothered me just because, racism or whatever, they looked at us as some type of entertainment. They looked at us like we was a part of like a show, an embarrassment. And it's also embarrassing, and technically it is embarrassing because, first of all, you're viewing these people's thoughts, so it's kind of an invasion of privacy too, because you got Letty's situation going on with Atticus. We all know how they feel about each other. Then you got George and Dora, and then you got Atticus, going against his like traumatic experience in the army or whatever. So there's a lot going on in some intimate situations, and it's all being broken because their pain and their passions and their things that they love is being broadcast to these people that's just sitting here laughing at them, having their cocktails and stuff like that. And you see Christina just like wandering around, not too sure how she felt about it. But again, when you look at Christina, you can kind of see that she, I'm not gonna say she felt some type of way, but she was just like, I don't want to do this. Like, her look on her face is just like, I'm just here. And then also, she shouldn't be down there because they also got some things against women, so they don't want women being a part of the ceremony. But she's there. You even hear some men in the background saying, why is Christina here? Like, she's not supposed to be here. So it's just a lot going on in this episode, y'all, and there's a lot of things that got underneath my skin. So once they came out their hallucinations, they were able to come out their rooms, and they sat there and just like, did they make you see things? And they were just like, yeah. And you could tell this affected Atticus a lot more than George and Letty, because he's actually reliving some trauma that possibly might have really happened, and he's living that situation all over again. So you could tell that affected him. And it was something that George said that kind of triggered me, but also, I feel like people should take, especially young black men and even women, should take what George said, with them. Because I kind of relived as soon as he said this, I instantly thought of me just working at a job, you know, and I felt like I was never getting like this promotion that I wanted, or I was never getting what I deserved. And, you know, the people that was hired in me kind of was making me jump through loops and make me do this and make me do that. And it was at one point I said, I'm not doing this, because I'm not going to keep sitting here putting my hard work, or I'm not going to sit here have you think I'm being crazy and I'm doing a horrible job, or just, you know, just being crazy in general because of the stuff that I'm even going through at work at that time. And I know it's not a reality, but this is what you perceive me. And I know that's all trash. So George kind of said, like along the lines of, that's how they win. They want to get in your head and make you look crazy. And you cannot let them do that. So I feel like people should take that with them, because, I mean, it's not even just with, you know, your boss, or it could be your parents, it could be like a friend or whatever, and it's not even just a white person, it could be anybody, just in general. But in the state of the world right now, it's just especially what's going on in the show too, and with white supremacy, that's what they want. They want you to look crazy. They want to plant these seeds in your head to make it seem like you're not good enough, you're not doing a great job, and to doubt yourself. And you should never ever let that happen. So this kind of hit home with me when he said that, and I took that with me, because I'm just like, that's real. It's really, really real. So hopefully that has the same effect on you guys, and you can kind of utilize that quote that Mr. George gave us there. So yeah. So then these guys are called for dinner, except for Letty, because it's only men only. And we get a whole bunch of, you know, these white guys, and they're sitting here looking at George and Atticus like they're crazy. But then we have George preaching to everybody, saying that you guys cannot order us around. And he kind of goes on saying talking about the book that he found and the new order and all this crazy stuff. And then he realized, like, oh, well, only people that's relatives of Titus Braithwaite, the founder or whatever, can only, you know, make these orders to these new members. And since technically Atticus is a member and a blood relative to Titus Braithwaite, he's able to make the call. So then we get Atticus. He's sitting there telling them, get the fuck out. They didn't want to listen. So he stands up and he's just like, that's an order. Get the fuck out. The only one that ends up staying is Samuel, and they have a little conversation. And Samuel's just like, well, you know, I just need you for the ceremony. I need you to be there, whatever, blah, 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 blah. Atticus is like, whatever, I just want to find my father. They end up going to this building where the lady was at in the beginning of the show with the dogs. Montrose was stored down there. And, you know, they can't find him, so they're sitting there trying to find ways, because they were like, well, he was here, because here's his, like, little bottle thing. The lady with the dogs come back down. She's trying to get him out of here. Letty comes out, saving the day again, knocking that bitch out, because, I mean, it's Letty. It's Letitia fucking Lewis. You know, she's always saving the day, and I hoping that she's going to continue saving the day here, because that's my girl. I just love Letty. While they were down there, Atticus kind of found like these, you know, rocks in the wall. He's like, oh well, Montrose got out. Then we get Montrose dig himself out the damn ground. As he gets out the ground, he sees Letty, George, and Atticus out there, and he's kind of upset, like, why are you here? They was like, we come here to save you. He's like, I don't need your fucking saving. Why the hell you here? And I'm like, well, Montrose, you're kind of ungrateful, because, you know, your brother and your son was worried about you. Like, why the hell, like, are you being like this? That's kind of messed up. So they end up going into the car. Letitia's just like, yo, let's get out of here. The time to go is now. So they end up going. You know, George and Montrose is in the back seat talking about the Necronomicon. And I instantly thought about Evil Dead, because that's the Book of the Dead. And they were just like, no, there's another book of names, blah, 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 blah. And they pretty much want to use Atticus, a part of this something, you know, the ceremony thing. So George is telling everybody about the book that he read and about the failed attempt that Titus was trying to do, and it ends up killing everybody inside the building. And Samuel needs Tick in order to complete that ritual that Titus was supposed to do back in those times or whatever, to grant himself immortality or whatever the hell it is. So as they go in, they crash into this force field, end up hurting themselves. They get out the car. Samuel and Christina is behind them. Samuel end up shooting Letty, killing her. Guys, I was shocked. I said, you know what? This can't be real. You know, the show is magic. It's like Harry Potter in this episode, you know? Like, there's a lot of wizardry and a whole bunch of just mystical and magical things happening in this episode. So, you shoot Letty, she dies, she could come back, right? But at that moment, I was sad. They were playing with my emotions because I said, they're not taking my girl out like that. And then Samuel ends up shooting George. Pissed me off. I'm like, so you're just going to kill everybody off, bruh? That's not cool. So then we go into, you know, the building, and, you know, Atticus is being, you know, watched down by these people. He's butt-ass naked. You see his bare ass, amazing body. I need to work out because I'm inspired or whatever like that. But, you know, everybody's getting their life in the scene. When I was on Twitter, everybody was just going off or whatever. But it was a scene worth going off for. So, he's butt-ass naked. He's sitting here talking to Christina, and Christina's just like, yeah, Letty is saved. Go through with this ritual, George would be healed as well, but you have to go through this in order for your uncle to be healed. So Letty's back. You know, she's not actually dead, so I'm happy that they saved her. She's going through, you know, some traumatic experiences because she just died, and she just experienced her coming back, herself back to life. So she's kind of, you know, fucked up at the moment. And then we have Montrose and George, and, you know, Montrose is at George's side, and we are kind of revealed, guys. Not even kind of. It is a revealment that I guess that Atticus is not Montrose's son. You know, I think George is Atticus' father in reality. And because we get the hints that Montrose is like, we talked about this in the past, we squashed that, we settled this, why are you bringing it up again? So I guess we know for a fact that Atticus is not Montrose's son. So there you go. And we also get a conversation between Tick and Christina, and how, like, Tick is getting inside Christina's head, saying, like, even as a black man, I'm still more beneficial to your father than what you are because you are a woman. So he said, even as a man, and a black man at that, I'm still more beneficial to your family opposed to you. And I think this is also planting a seed in her head again, where she's going to end up hating her family and kind of just being more of an ally towards, you know, Atticus and Letty and George, you know, in the future. Hopefully she doesn't turn into some type of snake or whatever. Hopefully they use her for the better. And then we get to the ceremony where, you know, you got the men in cloaks, and you got Samuel in the cloaks saying his thing. Atticus is out there with his ring, they're opening up this portal, and as the scene is playing, Gil Scott Heron, Whitey's on the Moon, playing during the scene. And if you listen closely to this poem, it actually goes along with the scene and pretty much what's going on in the show in general. It's kind of nerve-wracking because it's like you don't know what's going to happen. Is Atticus going to die? Is going to transport him somewhere? What's going to happen? So as all of this is going on, the portal is opening up, and then you see this black woman, you know, in front of Atticus. He's sitting there looking confused, and there's a pregnant lady. And then I put two and two together, and I'm just like, I remember when they were in the woods, George was talking about the ancestor and the pregnant lady, and she's running through the woods, and I'm like, well, this lady is clearly pregnant, so it must be Hannah. Things quickly go wrong. Atticus has this inside power that he uses. I don't know what the hell happened, but he kind of just uses this like inner power that's like in his body. He ends up doing this blast from his entire body, turning everybody into stone, including Samuel, and Samuel ends up exploding because something fall on him, so he's pretty much dead. And then Hannah ends up escaping, running down the halls while everything is on fire. Atticus is trying to chase after her while everything is exploding and, you know, whatever, everything is on fire. He ends up catching up to her, and she ends up disappearing. And he's out there while the whole building is collapsing, everything is falling apart. We do not know if Christina or William or a couple people in here are still alive or not. I have a feeling that they escaped, but I do know Samuel is dead. Atticus ends up making it out the building. The whole building is collapsed. And then we have George, Letty, and Montrose outside. Clearly they made it out. I'm sorry, I know they're not dead, but they made it out too because they were like one of the first people to go. And Letty, you could just tell that she's a little distraught. Like, she's happy to see Atticus, but then also you could just tell in her face that something went wrong. Atticus ends up walking to the car, and he ends up seeing George and Montrose in the back seat, and George is dead, guys. Uncle George has passed away. He died from that gunshot wound. He didn't get a chance to get healed because of the whole failed attempt of the ceremony. And just the scene right here with Atticus showing his grief and how sad he was, and just the different emotion, it made me teary-eyed. Like, just seeing this whole scene right here was just a lot. And it's not even just that, it's just that we fell in love with George since episode 1. He was on this adventure with his nephew. He was having, and you could just tell that even though he was scared going through these, these crazy situations and, racist people and these monsters, you can also get a sense that he was kind of enjoying it, enjoying this adventure with him and Letty. And it just, now we don't have him anymore, and now we got dumbass Montrose, and he substituted for him. So hopefully he's a great substitution from George. I still prefer to have George, and I'm hoping that he's not dead. I love Courtney B. Vance. He did an amazing job playing Uncle George here, and I'm just hoping that we don't see the last of him. I hope they revive him, or if they don't revive him, hopefully we get some flashback scenes with him or something, because there's a lot. And then it's just like we have so many questions, because with all these things that happen in this episode, it's just like we got so much more to cover now, and it's being as though that each episode is kind of like a movie of its own. How are you guys going to answer these questions, in these episodes? So I'm so curious of how, they're going to do that, continue on with Lovecraft Country. The third episode looks bananas. It looks like it's going to be more horror, more scarier, and I know exactly what it is. It's going to be based on Letty's situation. I do know ghosts or spirits is going to be involved, so I cannot wait to review that one. And speaking of that, I might do a live stream after the episode goes off, maybe 30 minutes after the episode go off, and I might have a special guest with me, Zero Gravity. We've been talking for a minute. We are both super fans of the show, and I can't wait to have her on. So we might do a live stream after this episode that's coming up this week, and I can't wait for you guys to see. So if you're down for that, and you're down for joining us, watching, Lovecraft Country episode 3, and then tuning in after, to hear us talk about it, then, come on to my YouTube, Bobby Torres. Zero Gravity is going to be there. We're going to have some talks, and it's going to be live, and hopefully you guys come and join and have a good time with us to discuss episode 3 of Lovecraft Country. So yeah, guys, let me know what you thought about this episode in the comments below. If you enjoyed it, if you didn't, if you just was as confused as I was or the rest of the world, let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe, comment, and like this video. Thanks again for watching, guys, and I'll see you guys very, very soon. Thanks. Peace out.